Let's rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Fellow board members, good evening to our first and only meeting for October. So we got a lot of work to do today. I'll do what I can to keep it flowing. Please help me with that process. To anyone who might be wanting to speak on behalf of number 11, unscheduled audience participation, there are some white cards back there by the water bottles, and if you would fill those out, hand them to Angela, she'll give them to me, and then we can go through that in an orderly way. Also know that there are some instructions on there about how that whole process works. Heather, would you do attendance, please?
Yeah. Betcha. President Donnelly?
Here.
Vice President D'Alessandro?
Here.
Secretary Schaefer? Here. Treasurer Bailey?
Here.
Trustee Griffith? Here. Trustee Foster? Here. Trustee Hanser?
Present.
Thank you very much, Heather. Mr. Throne, are there any changes to the board agenda?
None.
We have before you the consent agenda. Minutes of, yes, please, go ahead.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there support? Chad's support. Is there discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Human Resources, we have you up front.
All right, it's good to go first this evening. So we have on the agenda tonight, we have a Chad Urchek from the Michigan Department of Education on a conference line this evening. Part of our requirement for pre-Labor Day start is to go through a public hearing process, and so that's what we've got on the agenda this evening. So Chad, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right, I'll turn it over to you for now then.
All right, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Dave for helping coordinate this hearing with the department. My name is Chad Urchek, and I'm the department representative from the Office of Financial Management. And when a Labor Day waiver is requested, Section 160 of the State School Aid Act requires the district to conduct a joint public hearing to discuss the waiver, and the public hearing must take place before the department can approve the Labor Day waiver. And there really are two main reasons behind the hearing. First, it gives the district an opportunity to present the educational goals for the waiver and the student outcomes that they're hoping to achieve, and then how they're going to measure those outcomes. And then second, it also allows community members a chance to provide comments and ask questions related to the waiver. I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Dave.
Okay, so Mr. Throne, our superintendent, is going to give a brief overview of our request.
So our waiver is actually based around our alignment with OSEC, our Oxford Schools Early College. We want to both align the start and end of high school with college courses. Students will start both sequences of courses at the same time. While it's not on the slide, our OSEC participation has grown very rapidly over the last few years. We have been on a waiver for the last 3 years through Open Schools, and we are asking for our own waiver tonight for the next 3 years. And we have currently dual enrollment with numerous community colleges, each college program partnership with the following: Oakland, Washtenaw, Mott, and Macomb Community College, as well as Rochester University, and you can see the start dates up there as well. This current school year also is a new high for our number of students in the OSEC program, which is now also aligned under our high school. I think at this point I'm going to stop and just that's why we're requesting the waiver and ask for any public comment either questions, or if you want to say something not in favor of it, or if you have concerns, please feel free to do that now. Okay, I hear none. Dave?
Okay, yeah, it doesn't look like there's any public comment this evening, Chad, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you. So I can say that the department has approved the waiver for 3 years, beginning next year, 2020-21. And what this approval means is that the district can choose to implement the waiver at your discretion during that 3-year period. And I will send an electronic approval tomorrow. So you should receive that in your email box tomorrow. And the only other thing I will mention is that when the district is operating under a Labor Day waiver, state law still requires the district not to schedule instruction time on the Friday before Labor Day.
Yep.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much for your time this evening. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks. You're welcome. Have a good night.
You too. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, and that is all I have for this evening, unless you have any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Clear Lake Elementary School, Mr. Bigelow.
Sorry about that. Well, good evening, everybody. We'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to Clear Lake. We always enjoy the opportunity to host you all each fall. Tonight, also excited to share with you some of the things that are happening at Clear Lake. Throughout the presentation tonight, you're going to receive some of hear some of our feedback looking at our stakeholder survey data that was taken last spring. You'll also see a snapshot of our school improvement plan, and then you're also going to see our points of pride, things that we're excited about here at Clear Lake. So it was last month that the staff and myself had an opportunity to collaborate and look at our stakeholder survey data from this past spring. What you'll see up here over the course of the next 2 slides is our feedback, those things that really stood out to us when we were looking through the data. So the first slide that you're going to see is our parent feedback. So a high percentage of our parents indicated Clear Lake has high learning standards for all students. This was something that really jumped out to all of us from the very beginning. At Clear Lake, we believe all students can learn. We have very high standards for our students, high expectations, and we strive each and every day to communicate those expectations to our students, both verbally and then also through our instructional practices. So again, we were really encouraged to see that came out. The second point, our parents indicated that teachers provide timely feedback and utilize various methods for continuous communication. Again, something that jumped out at us. We view our parents as our teammates, as our partners, and with any strong partnership, communication is vital. So we want to make sure that we're using every measure that we possibly can to make sure that our parents have information on their child. The next one, our parents would recommend Clear Lake to a family member or friend. That's always very encouraging when they would recommend you to their loved ones. Our parents indicated the school promotes ample opportunity for active engagement through school activities. I believe this one's a two-way street. Our teachers believe in providing opportunities for our parents, but at the same time, our parents have to accept an invitation. We're very fortunate here. We have a great school community. Our parents are very locked in. They're very actively engaged in their child's education. So it's a very common practice to be in the office every day. It's a revolving door. We have parents in hallways, they're in classrooms, they're supporting our teachers and our students in various capacities. And then the last one, our parents believe that our school is safe. It's no secret the past several years we've put a lot of resources and energy into having a safe learning environment for our students, and our parents agree. There was 2 actionable items that we identified when looking at our parent survey data. The first, exploring avenues for increasing overall participation in our stakeholder surveys. So last spring, our enrollment, we were at about 485 students. When you look at the total number of parents that actually took the survey, it wasn't what we would have hoped. Now, we did get back some valuable feedback, but it's our goal moving forward that we can try to encourage our parents to take the survey if they haven't done so up to this point. The second actionable item that we got from our parent survey data, a further analysis into those who respond do not know on survey questions. I think the first question we ask ourselves when we see a do not know response is, number one, is there something that we're not communicating? Do they not know because they don't know the answer? So that's the first thing that we look at. I think when, as a staff, we look through the results, you look at the types of questions that parents are responding do not know to, that wasn't so much the case. Just a couple of examples. Number one, there was a couple of questions geared towards maybe the secondary level. There was a career readiness question. There was maybe like a college pathways question. So parents at this level might not know how to respond to that. The second, or I guess several other questions where parents responded do not know dealt with discipline. So was my child's discipline handled fairly? Was this situation done? Was it I communicated with? Well, if your student hasn't ever been disciplined before, you might not know how to answer that question. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. But again, I just want to reiterate, we want to make sure that we do not know is the given response, that it's not something that we should be communicating to them. Our next slide are our highlights from our staff survey results. So the first one, a high percentage of staff believe administrators make decisions in the best interests of students. And I like to believe we are all advocates first and foremost for students above anything else. So that was a highlight for us. Our staff feel supported in their work and within the work environment. I believe this one's really important as well. Our teachers have a lot on their plates. They're juggling a lot of different things at once. We want to create that type of culture, that environment where they feel supported every single day when they come to work. So that makes our job ensuring that they have the tools, the resources, those types of things to feel successful when they come. If you'll notice with all of the other responses, we didn't put a percentage until we got to the third point on this slide. Professional development targets meet the needs of our teachers. So every single staff member that took this survey and responded to this question, 100% of them felt like our professional development met their needs. I think we've, as an administration group, have put a lot of time and energy into listening to our teachers, seeing what their needs are, really trying to be intentional with the professional development that we are bringing to them. We want it to be impactful for them, so that they feel successful when they go back into the classroom and implement it with their students. A high percentage of our staff indicated the need for increased common planning time. Our teachers love to have time together. They love the opportunities to sit down, collaborate, discuss things that are going on in their classrooms. And so this is an actionable item for me. I'm the one that puts together the master schedule each August, and so it's really just trying to get creative and looking at my grade levels. We're putting together that special schedule and trying to block those times for my teachers. It's much easier when you're dealing with maybe 2 or 3 sections, but once you get to 4 sections within a certain grade level, it starts to become a little bit more challenging. But again, I think if we get creative, that's one of the things that I can address. Okay, this slide provides you with a snapshot of our school improvement initiatives, our goals, things that we're going to be focusing on. And I would say each of the things that you see up here this evening are not just goals for this year. These are going to be goals for us probably over the course of the next 2 or 3 years. The first one, Readers and Writers Workshop. Workshop is that model in which we deliver reading and writing instruction on a daily basis. Our teachers have had professional development over the past several years focused on workshop. But now we've reached the point where we really need to laser in a little bit more, and that area we're going to focus in on is conferring. So basically conferring is when our teachers have the opportunity every single day during readers and writers instruction to coach individual students. They're pulling them off to the side, they're identifying their needs, their gaps, their strengths, and then most importantly, they're providing them with a strategy. So when they leave that conferring session with their teacher, they have a strategy that they can take with them back to their independent practice. So it's a really, really powerful tool for our teachers, a practice that they need to be doing on a daily basis. So that will be a huge focus for us this year and beyond. Number 2, daily math routine. This is for grades DK through 2. This is a 10 to 15 minute component that can be found within our teachers' math expressions lessons on a daily basis. So every single day, 10 to 15 minutes. It's the opportunity for the teacher to help students develop that number sense, help them understand the relationships between numbers. The second piece there, learning labs, providing our teachers with opportunities to be in each other's classrooms, to view instruction, to go in with a clear vision of what they're looking at, and then when they leave the classroom, being able to have dialogue about what they just saw and how they can take it back into their own classroom and apply it. Number 3, I believe you saw this with Mr. McDivitt 2 weeks ago out at Leonard. All of our teachers in grades K through 2 throughout the district are implementing Lucy Calkins phonics units of study. Just one of the reasons why I believe this is so important, through the 3rd grade reading law, students who have reading intervention plans who are reading below grade level, one of the requirements that we have to do is we have to identify a targeted skill area that basically says this is why this student is struggling. And over the past 2 or 3 years, we have looked at our data, which has told us the percentage of the number of kids within those areas and why they're struggling. Phonics has come up time and time again. So we're really excited about offering this to our teachers and are hopeful for the impact that it's going to have in the classroom on our students. Okay, our points of pride. Extracurricular clubs, activities. It says developing student interest and encouraging involvement. That's what we're all about. On any given year, we can offer up to 12 different extracurricular activities for kids at the elementary level. I think that's huge. I think helping kids identify their passions, their interests, things that can really help them get involved in something outside of the normal classroom setting is extremely important. So we're always encouraging our kids to get involved, get engaged with something. It's a great way to meet friends, and again, just develop those passions. So we're really excited about those opportunities. Last year we implemented the Clear Lake Cares Student Recognition Program. We recognized we recognized hundreds of caring acts last year from November through the end of May. Basically, students can recognize each other for just caring acts that they see. It might be their best friend, it might be somebody that they don't even know. Our teachers can recognize students. We actually even had parents get involved. So we have chain links that were displayed throughout the building. So I thought it was very powerful for us as a school community. You'll probably notice too, and if you did, hopefully on your way out tonight, we have, it says welcome and it says hashtag Clear Lake Cares. It's in pumpkins out here. And so we've had all of our stakeholders sign those pumpkins. It's just a reminder for us that we're all in this together. This is what we're about. I think it's also a great connection when we talk about the portrait of a graduate. Just one small way that we can have an impact on the PLG each and every day at an elementary level. So you will see a pumpkin over here on the corner by Mrs. Sweet. What we're going to ask is just before you leave tonight, if you wouldn't mind, there's a Sharpie. If you wouldn't mind just signing it, and then we're going to add that pumpkin out here to the display.
Love it.
And then just lastly, just an extension, we've added another component to our Clear Lake Cares program. It's our Clear Lake Cares Lunch Buddy program. So we've identified 24 students, grades 4 and 5 this year, who are supporting our first and second graders at lunch. So instead of going outside with their own grade level or coming into the lunchroom with their own grade level, they are flip-flopping. And so they're able to come in and eat lunch with the younger students, and then they go outside with the younger students too. I think it's really powerful. Our younger kids really look up to our older ones. So it's a great opportunity for our older students to be a good role model, to be a good example, to help kids work through issues that they might be experiencing. So again, we started this last Monday, and we're off to a really good start. So that's all that I have for you this evening, unless there's any questions.
Eric?
Just so I understand the survey, the stuff on the first page, those are, say, verbatims from things that people wrote on the survey that you pulled off, or those actual answers to questions?
So just so that I understand you correctly, this was, these were the questions that were asked. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Is that what you mean?
That's meaning they are answers to questions, or they are verbatims of the...
So basically, parents, when you will see here, we only pulled out things where parents mark agree or strongly agree. So
would you say this is like a pulse check on how we think we're doing at the moment? Or last year? Okay.
I think so.
So then how do we know if we're doing better or worse from previous years? So we have this pulse check, we know where we're at, but how do we know where we're going? Like, this is a snapshot in time. If we're comparing ourselves to last year or the year before, are we doing better with parents and students? Or are we doing faculty, or are we doing worse? How do we know that based off of this page?
So a couple of times, or in a couple of instances, not every survey asks the same questions every year. So we're not going to necessarily get longitudinal data. Part of the questions that we ask are structured such that we can get our nationally normed data, and that's where we're really wanting to compare ourselves to schools across the nation, not just comparing it to ourselves. Very few questions, I would say, would line up every year that would allow us to compare one year to another. So the goal isn't necessarily to, ensure that in one particular area we're getting better. I think the goal is we find out what our actionable items are, the staff takes a look at it, and then they determine where they're at and what they want to do to make that better or enhance it or that kind of thing. The following year, there may or may not be a question on that actionable area. Does that make sense?
It does. I guess I kind of have a hard time. Let me rewind a little bit. So let's say we have a question that's the same. It's just one of those that you carry through because you want to know.
Okay.
And year one, it's bad. Year two, it's bad. If I never see year one, then how do I know I'm doing better by the teachers or the students or whatever? If I see the same issues year after year, I know that there's a problem. It's not getting addressed. I'm just saying maybe we should think about that, because if there's a problem that's not getting addressed by the surveys, I would never know it by seeing a survey today, but I would know it by seeing surveys in the past that it's not happening. Just think about it.
2 meetings ago, we were able to see year to year. I think what you're saying is some surveys are designed so that you can see longitudinally, you can see trends. This is not one of them. But this very board, just in the last few meetings, has looked at last year compared to this year, what they said last year and what they're saying this year, and our action plan to solve it. So we've done both. We've done both types of surveys.
I don't know what to my ignorance, I don't know what those are.
So let me give you an example. One question that's very consistent every year revolves around safety, okay? And while we may get, I don't know, 94% of people say our school is very safe. When that question's asked nationally, what happens if nationally schools are answered at 95? Does that mean that we're not safe? It does give us pause to look, though, in that while we may think 94 is a great number, in actuality, it may not be a great number. And so, in some of those areas, our survey questions are grouped in topics. It's not the exact same question every year. And so you may have 3 or 4 questions that revolve around PD, or 3 or 4 questions revolve around safety. I don't want to give the impression that we don't use this data, because obviously we do. But I also don't want to give the impression that it is a one-for-one, that you can draw
Correlation.
correlations for this was the problem, this is what we did, okay, was it solved? I don't think we can go that far either. I know it doesn't really answer your question, but
I'm with you. I understand. I just, I like to see straight lines, and I can't do that.
sometimes teaching and learning is not a straight line. And there's some gray areas in there.
Yes, Mary?
I had a comment. Thank you for bringing up those questions, because I think along the same line too. What I've come to realize with these surveys, for me, I see it as a more all-encompassing result. That it is kind of it's a point in time, and if some of the parts are working, they're an indication of other parts that have worked. And it still gives you data, it just doesn't give you that data. This isn't chart data. You don't have the same number of people responding every year, and people's interests change. That's just my picture of it. I just thought I'd share that with you. It's just a little more.
You're right, I agree. And I think for me, I just need to look at it as, like I said, it's a pulse check.
Yeah.
It's not an inference into anything that we have done or too far in the future. I need to not look for miracles.
And I think if something was horribly off, if there were results in here that were really, really bad on any of these, that would definitely be a flag to look at something. I also wanted to comment on the programs. It seems like every time anybody presents in a meeting like this, I get really emotional about something, but I think this is awesome to be able to talk about things like the Lunch Buddy programs. You have the problem of finding ways to be more creative, to engage even more people and make even more people feel comfortable and included, and develop an even better environment for your students and for your staff. I mean, what a great problem to have. You're not putting out fires. That's great. Keep it up. Thank you.
Anyone else? I'd simply like to say a couple things. It's got to be really good that when you're analyzing survey data, that the number of people who participate in the survey is your actual item. That means you're doing pretty good. So great job. And the evidence of that is, I think, on the teacher side, is that you had 100% of your staff saying that your continuous improvement type education for them is spot on. And secondly, the fact that you can have this buddy system and hundreds of caring acts happening within the school, it's great to be a Wildcat. It's good. Great job.
I love the pumpkin idea. And I did notice it as soon as I walked in, I was like, look at that. I noticed
That would be
everybody signed
Mrs.
it.
Nemi, so.
I'm sure that is missing anything. I don't doubt that one bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Love it.
Thank you very much. We're on number 6, Board of Education matters. Tim, formation of conference committee.
Yes, I want to let the board know, as well as our public, that I have asked Jordan Ackerman, our athletic director, to form a committee. The committee is going to consist of students, staff, as well as community people, and they're going to take a look at our current conference alignment and eventually report back to us. No decisions have been made, nothing major has happened to institute this, but I think it's just something that's been coming on, and so I've formally asked Jordan to go ahead and put a committee together to take a look at that. And so they'll do that and report back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there a timeline? Do we have, there's a self-imposed timeline, but do we have an idea?
We have a timeline of things
For him to come
like,
back to us, not to make a decision.
yeah, I would hope by springtime at the latest.
Good. Curriculum and instruction, Mr. Weaver.
That's me.
Hello there, Anita.
Hi, Lauren. I have to read by grade 3. So I'm going to kind of maybe stay close to here just because I have some things that I want to be able to show you on our website as well, and I'll try to look out so that my back is not to you. But I'm here to just give you a legislative update on Read by Grade 3. The legislation was introduced in 2016, and when our current governor came on, she was really determined to possibly see it go away. That has not happened, so we have to move forward in making sure that we are on track with it. When the legislation was introduced in 2016, the idea was that we would be looking at identifying students who are struggling in reading and writing, and based on their performance by the end of 3rd grade, look to see if they would be eligible to be retained as a result of that. And we have had some time to put some parameters in place before this law takes into effect, and this is the first year, so the end of this school year would be the first year that we would be considering students for retention possibly. And there is a good cause exemption that we really need to make parents aware of, that I'm going to get into a little bit later in the slide. So first of all, Ken and I did present a little bit about MTSS last year, and this really, I know that this law is controversial, but I really find the silver lining in it, and that it really has helped a lot of schools, including us, really look at our processes for improving instruction at multiple tiers, right? So what does every student have access to? What are our students getting if they need a little more help, and then even more than that? And so while there are some maybe negative ramifications implied with the law, I've really focused on how it's really forced us to look at strengthening the things that are actually in our control. So that begins by strengthening our Tier 1 instruction. That's the instruction that every student has access to on a daily basis. So something that's made me really proud is every presentation that we've had so far, you've heard mention of our elementary curriculum, the phonics units, which are a response to the needs, our reading and writing units. We are really getting in alignment with that, and that is a powerful thing that all students have access to on a daily basis. Putting in classroom libraries, that was something that was done before I came on. About $500,000 was spent to put libraries in every classroom in the elementary level. This year, we really rolled out the essential practices. So working with the principals, we rolled out what our expectations are instructionally in every classroom. So it doesn't matter if you're a 2nd grader at Leonard or you're a 2nd grader here at Clear Lake, you should be getting the same high quality education, right? And so part of that is doing a lot of norming and making sure the expectations are clear. And then this year, we're really proud to be rolling out some problem solving opportunities for grade levels. So this Friday, we have our first early release where teachers will work together to really kind of get around the PLC questions of what do we want our students to learn, how do we know if they have, what do we do if they haven't, and what do we do if they have. And so really talking with each other about, again, what's in their control and how they can improve the instruction within their own classrooms. And then also strengthening and evaluating our Tier 2 instruction. So if Tier 1 isn't making the grade for you, as Brad mentioned, we are writing reading improvement plans for students, and so that could be that they're going into an intervention outside of the classroom, or it's an intervention in the classroom. This year, or I'm sorry, at the end of last year, our MTSS coordinator did a program evaluation on one of the biggest reading interventions, LLI, or level literacy intervention. And we're really looking to see, like, is that a strong intervention? Are kids really moving along? And if they are, did they receive the intervention in this time period or this time period and this frequency? So we're really starting to dig deep and honing in on what makes it strong, or is there something even better out there? And one thing that I want to make sure we understand, even though this is a third grade law, everything applies to all of our elementary kids. So all of our kids, DK through 5, and I would even say we're starting to really align to like middle school and high school, have access to this, right? So this isn't just about our third graders. So in our system, we screen kids 3 times a year. They're screened within the first 30 days of school in reading and math. I'll plug that in there, even though it's a reading presentation. And then from there, kids based on our cup score there, some kids will have a diagnostic given to them. That's where the teacher will work with them one-on-one and really kind of hone in, again, as Brad mentioned, on what's the skill that's really getting in their way. We'll also look at their strengths. So what's a strength we can play up on so that we can now start working on this skill? They could be in anywhere from a 6 to 12-week intervention based on what's written for them. And that's the reading, the IRIT, or the individual reading plan. So, educating families. This has been an important part. So far before I came here, I was doing this in my last district, and I know Ken and the principal started this before I got here, but starting in 2016 and each year moving forward, letters have been sent to families at the beginning of the year, DK through the classes that would be affected, right? So maybe year 1 was like DK through 1, now we're going DK through 3. Also, principals have been doing presentations at curriculum nights or back to school nights or parent-teacher conference nights to educate them and make sure that they're aware of the law and what we're also doing to make sure that their child is getting what they need. Now we kind of need to take it a step further, because this year there is a possibility that students could be up for retention based on their M-STEP score. And so I'm going to come out of this presentation to show you a little bit of what we're doing to help educate our parents. So the last bullet is there's a presentation at conferences in November. I actually just finished that today and I sent it out, so hopefully we'll get feedback on that. But at parent-teacher conferences, all of the elementary principals will provide an opportunity to bring parents in again. So, on our, I thought I already clicked on that, sorry. On our district website, and every school, so over on all the elementary schools, because this impacts every setting, we've added, and thanks to Danny, for parents, a drop down here for Read by Grade 3. So I kind of just typed up a quick little summary, but this is what the most important part is at the bottom. So there are resources here for parents that help them, 1, understand the law, but 2, understand their rights as a parent. That's a major shift because the parents have a right in the law and whether or not their child will be retained. We've included these in English and Spanish because Spanish is our biggest sub-language. There is Arabic also on the Michigan website, so they can access it in other languages. And then we've added what is a good cause exemption. So a good cause exemption is if a child has an IEP, if a child has a 504, if a child hasn't been in the country long enough to have acquired the English language, if a child has been retained before. These are all reasons why we would consider not retaining a child in the 3rd grade. Parents have a right to exercise that good cause exemption, and so do we on the district side. So I've created forms for teachers and administrators to start that process, and then a form for parents. So what happens is after they take the M-STEP, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. No, I didn't. CEPI is the Center for Educational Performance and Information. They're supposed to send out the letters. We'll see if they do. It might fall on us. They're supposed to send out the letters to the parents, letting them know that their child may be retained because of their scale score on the M-STEP. Once they do that, a parent has 30 days to ask for a good cause exemption, which goes to Tim, our superintendent. And then we would review it and take it from there. Now, parents don't always know how to navigate that, so we created a letter for them. So it tells them here, they can click here, and then they'll get a form letter. Hopefully it'll populate. And all they have to do is click date, name, child's name, check the box, put their phone number in, and all of that, and then send it to Tim. Because there's no way they're going to know what to type and say, oh, I want to put this in there. So this is on, again, all of our elementary web pages so the parents can access this, and this will be part of the presentation. Yeah.
So if we're talking about like a 504 and an IEP student, they would probably be, the special ed teacher would probably help work with the parents maybe at the end of the year towards, because this would be, you said, after the M-STEP scores come back.
Right.
So we're tight on time, right?
May,
so late May, and then they have 30 days, so like they would need to move that along.
Right.
So I assume they would probably make sure to kind of flag those kids, if you will, and work with them. Yeah.
And we're looking, like last year when the scale score came out, we started looking. As soon as soon as they were finished, we were bringing them up just to kind of keep tabs ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to share this because I think it's important that we empower parents. They have to know what their rights are, and then we need to make it easy for them. They should not be spending time navigating the system. And so this is a nice form that they can just click in, and then we give direction on, you can email it, or here's an address that you can send it to. Sorry. And then just to kind of give you an idea of where we are, so last year, had it been a year that we would be considering the law, or if it was in place, we would have been looking at 9 kids total that would have been up for retention. That's across all of our elementaries. And over half, when I actually looked at their needs individually, would have qualified for a good cause exemption. It's actually probably like 7 out of those 9 kids. So we're kind of some of the fortunate districts, I think, if we really look at that number.
For sure.
And we're hoping that the efforts we're making in Tier 1 will even make that smaller moving forward. So, questions might you have?
You did mention it earlier, but can you maybe help me understand a little bit better? So we go through all the way, we're not just worried about DK through 2nd or 3rd grade. We provide assistance beyond 3rd grade? Because I guess my concern is okay, yeah, we got them through 3rd grade. Whew, the state's not worried about us anymore.
Right.
I mean, to me, an arbitrary number of 3rd grade seems like it should be continuous.
Yeah, we continue. So we're writing individual improvement plans for our 4th graders, our 5th graders. It's really about having a strong tiered system of support. So take the law out, we would be doing what we're doing because that's the right thing to do. Yeah, the law just kind of kicked us in the right direction a little more. Yeah, but we do for sure.
And then maybe just, and I don't like to step on the toes of the communication of folks and the people at central office, but maybe instead of having to scroll down and then drop a drop box and then go all the way down, maybe if we have something like the National Center tab, it might be, I don't know if you can have more than one, you know, I don't know, it's just something easier to
Oh,
find.
you mean not taking a tab and then scroll? Got it.
Take a tab and then go all the way down and have to go through all those and find them. I mean, it's, you can only put so much content and so many, you know, I get it, but something like that. I don't know, it's just a thought. And I'm sure they thought.
Mary?
Well, if it's right at the end, Dan, I like it that way, so I can just scroll right to the bottom and there it is.
True, yeah.
It's at the other end of the
Something in
list.
the middle.
There was I was meeting with some other school board members from around Oakland County recently, and some of the talk was about this third grade thing, like you were saying, Dan, this third grade, so then what? We spent all our resources there, and what about the rest of it? So it's good to know they were paying attention across all grades with that. The law says May, so there's a whole lot of gray area there. I mean, we obviously want the best for our students, and I'm assuming that there's a lot of other implications for holding a student back in third grade. And we would want everybody to advance, but in the same vein, if they're really not ready, then it doesn't serve the student to move on. So are there any specifics around what we absolutely have to do, or do we have some discretion? You know, I'm kind of caught by the May. I don't.
So I get caught by the May too.
Okay.
And I like to use the May to our advantage.
I agree, yeah.
There are like also like loopholes similar to M-STEP where the superintendent can like throw away one test score that, you know, it's kind of those funny things. So there, a lot falls on Tim actually in the law that he can make decisions that could change some things or how we go about retaining, if we retain. I mean, it's not a secret that retention in third grade is really not research supported, especially socially and emotionally. But there are also ways that we can build portfolios to make a case for our students so we can show that they actually are successful in all these other academic areas. So there are ways that we can work to make sure it's the right thing for the student.
I think that's great that that is what we're doing, is that it's just, and the way that you explained it too, you know, it's a little more push, and we're still going to do what the right thing is. We're not looking for ways not to do it.
Right.
So I appreciate that. And I love the fonts, by the way, in your presentation. I love your fonts.
Where's Matt?
Matt, I love your fonts.
Will you say that again when he gets back?
I will.
Thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate such
That's
things.
the elementary me. Yeah.
Matt was twitching the whole way.
Probably. He always like says, "Why'd you change the font?"
And thank you for all this. This is really important because it's so important that students can read, because it's just so hard to do much else. You just can't.
Sure.
In 20 years, they won't be able to read that top line.
Maybe less than 20.
Yeah. Maybe less than that.
Anyone else? The question I have is the good cause exemption, who adjudicates? Who is the parent filling it out? Final say? Who has the final say?
Technically 10, but it would be a team behind 10.
Okay, so a parent could check one of those boxes and still be told the child has to be, okay, all right, just wondering.
But just to, can I add a little bit real quick?
Sure.
Just go back even to Mary's point, we have to have a plan of how we're going to support that students. There are lots of also implications on us if we decide that's what we're going to do. They have to be with a teacher who is highly qualified, inserted in that area, and we have to have write goals and plans for the student as well, if that's what we decide to do.
Okay.
Last question. Can a parent choose to retain their student if they so choose,
Based on this law?
based on maybe their student is right on the borderline. I guess it would be my preference to give that parent that final say, I want to retain my child. We can say, well, he's right on the borderline, we think he's going to be okay. It's their student, it's their child, it's their choice. We're talking about 9 students. If one says, I want to be, my child needs that extra.
I think there are always exceptions to the rule, and it should be, yeah, definitely we would want to make sure that the parent has all the information that they need, but they can absolutely, and in fact, we've had a couple of those cases this past year into this year where that's happened. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Board members, you have a couple recommendations, motions for Chromebooks. Would someone like to hit the first one? Dan?
Move to approve the purchase of Chromebooks and carts from Intercom TSG for elementary schools at the total cost of $195,400. This purchase will be applied to the general fund.
Is there support? Eric, support, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Someone want to read that second one, Chad?
Move to approve the purchase of Chromebooks and cards from Intercom TSG for secondary schools at the total cost of $291,695. This purchase will be applied to the same fund.
All right. Is there support? Mary, support, discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Barnett.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to introduce Jacob from Yo and Yo. Jacob is going to go over our 18-19 audit results.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Sam. Mary, I apologize. My font, you're not going to like it. Give me 1 second.
Easy to read, Jacob.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, my name is Jacob Sobczynski, and I was the auditor in charge of the audit for June 30th, 2019. And so I just want to talk to you a little bit about what happened during the audit, how we did as a district. The audit process always begins from the beginning, right? Easy peasy. So we always start with understanding the internal controls. We review your policies, your procedures, and we do inquiry, and we understand what your accounting department does here in the district. From there, we develop a risk-based approach. So from there, we identify where are you going to be highest risk at from an accounting approach. And we modify our procedures to address those issues. We test things like journal entries. We do receipts that come through the business office, but also receipts that come decentralized through the schools, making sure that the processes and procedures are in place and being done correctly. We also look at disbursements and how we spend money. We use purchasing cards, we use checks, we use EFTs, we use other means, making sure those policies work out well too. We review state compliance. A huge thing we do is we test 90 areas of state compliance to make sure the district is in compliance with the state accounting requirements. We review people membership to make sure the revenues are being recorded properly. We review budgets. We look at payroll. We look at the bid process. We look at petty cash. We look at governance policies, procedures, board meetings. And we look at federal programs. We look hard at federal programs. You know that. And then this year we also had sinking fund and capital projects. We also do testing over there to ensure compliance for the state as well. There's certain language in there we put in the audit report to ensure you guys are in compliance with those requirements. After all that testing and all that work, this is the only thing that I'm good for, is this opinion right here. And it says, in accordance with accounting rules, the financial statements are free from material misstatement. Congratulations, that's a clean opinion you passed. Nice job, Sam. Connie. A couple of things we noted during the audit. There were some unrecorded construction costs. So at the end of the year, we had some construction going on. Those costs weren't recorded. We recommended a journal entry, and Sam and Connie agreed, and so that entry was recorded. So the statements are correct as they are, but an entry was necessary to get them correct. And then the other item we noted was a non-compliance item. We had some budget overages on a couple of line items. One of them was a fairly large amount, and so that's a non-compliance issue, and we're going to correct that for next year. Sam and I talked about some ways to correct that. No significant deficiencies, no question costs, and last year when I was up here, we talked about making sure that things were reconciled properly, and that was corrected this year. Thank you for taking me seriously, and thank you for taking those comments to heart and correcting them. I appreciate that. A couple other small things we noted during the audit: ORS discrepancies, some of the processes in the ORS, how we're reporting retirement wages, that's been corrected. And then deficit fund balance in the community service fund, that was, it's slowly making its way out of that deficit. So continue that process and look at how we can improve that fund's performance. The fun stuff. Mary, good luck reading this one. So this is the balance sheet, and again, we're taking a snapshot. It's as of one day, as of June 30th. You see your substantial assets come from two main categories: cash and investments. Cash we have sitting, being ready to use, and then due from other governmental units. That's our July and August state aid that we record in the prior year because it relates to June. We don't get it till July and August. And then some state, some federal receivables as well. So those are substantially what we have for assets. All that money is owed to somebody, and so we have liabilities of about $9.2 million. And so that generally relates to money the general fund owes to other funds, and then what we owe teachers for the July and August payroll as well. So we have some accrued expenses, and then other AP and some other expenses out there as well. If I take all those assets, less those liabilities, the fund balance of the district in the general fund column is about $10.6 million, about where it was last year. It's kind of a flat year from an income statement standpoint. And we'll look at that in a second. All the other funds, I had to write them down. That other fund column is capital projects fund, all the debt service funds, food service fund, community fund as well. So a lot of other stuff going on in that other fund column. Generally, the other fund column is all taken care of itself. It raises its own revenues, has its own expenses, so it kind of sits alone as separate funds from the general fund. When we look at a measurement, that $10.6 million of the general fund balance, some of that is spoken for. About $500,000 is non-spendable. That's money we already spent, prepaid items, inventory, we already purchased some things. And then we also have some assigned for education solutions, which is new this year, and assigned for future healthcare costs. We have set aside about $2 million to pay for unexpected healthcare costs for the teachers. And then also the remaining amount, about $8 million, is assigned for future long-term benefits, or future long-term obligations. When we talk about fund balance, we talk about really two ways to measure fund balance to indicate one indication of the health of the district. The first one is unrestricted revenues. And so when we look at unrestricted revenues, it's kind of a baseline amount. It's, again, we'll talk about how we get our revenues, but it's a little bit more flat. You'll see a small decrease from last year to this year. It's because our numerator and our denominator changed. That's how a percentage happened, isn't it? But our fund balance really didn't change, but our costs continue to go up. And our revenues are going up as well. From our revenues, we were about $65 million this year for the general fund. Expenses, about $65 million. You can see it's about a flat year from that aspect. Fund balance, again, was flat. When we look at that compared to where we budgeted, that, in my opinion, is a pretty close budget. The comment I made before is in certain line items, we're over in certain line items and under in others. Our general fund revenue, where we get it from, remember proposal A, number of FTEs, number of students times the foundation allowance, less our local revenue. So we always add those local revenues and our state allowance together. 94% comes from state. Boy, we are bound to that state number entirely. So thank you, Governor Whitmer, wherever you are, for passing, and hopefully we'll get an October 20th state aid payment. Where we spend our expenses is pretty typical, is what we see is about 60% goes to direct instruction, and then the other big portion of that, 35%, goes to supporting services. So that's stuff like administration, but it's also aides and other resources going directly into the classroom. Transfers, capital outlay, and other expenses make up a very small percentage of where our money goes. When we look year over year, revenues is the green column, expenditures is the blue. We've got a nice little curve going up. Again, we continue to see increases in it's a twofold factor of revenues, right? Number of FTEs times that allowance. FTEs we've seen go up. Our enrollment has gone up. OVA's been a big part of that increase, and you can see that gentle incline going up, and that's where we like to be. Continued growth. On the other side, the other half of that formula, FTEs times foundation allowance, and that will, for 2020, should go up $240, unless something else happens. So we're hoping for the best on that. One of the biggest costs we have is the teachers, right? I mean, it's teachers, administrators, it's the labor. About 85% of our total expenses go right to labor costs. And about 40 cents on every dollar has to go to, for every dollar we spend on teachers, 40 cents goes to pay their MIPSers, which is retirement, pension, and health care. That's pretty steep percentage, 40 cents on every dollar. We are being subsidized by the state of Michigan. That's that green line. So the difference between the blue and the green, about 10%, is being subsidized by the state currently, under 147. So that's a good thing. Yes?
Do we know what 2020 is going to look like, or do we have any idea?
It's pretty flat from what I've seen. Have you seen anything different? It's pretty flat. The out-of-pocket is somewhat capped, so they can continue to charge us more. We just don't have to pay it. That's why they're giving us the money and we're paying it for it. Yep. Okay. A lot of stuff happening in the environment right now in schools. We do have a legislative budget, so we should get our October funding. We mentioned that, although about $1 billion was cut out of that budget. A lot of that affected schools. PSAs were affected. They will get no increase this year. And some at-risk cuts and some other cuts around the way too. So make sure you're looking at those budgets if you were counting on any of that revenue, that we're taking action to curb some of that cost. Rising fringe benefit costs, we kind of talked about that. That's kind of a big one. The pension fund is still $100 million that our district owes for that pension fund. We'll pay that over the next 30 years, but that's a pretty big bogey out there. Enrollment trends, you guys have been very fortunate. What a great district Oxford is. Coming in today, hearing the principal here talk about the great things they're doing here and hearing everything you guys are doing for curriculum too. 9 students, it's pretty impressive that wouldn't have made it. That's pretty good. So you're doing something right on that side of it. New accounting pronouncements. Next year we're going to have a new one. We're going to see the activity funds, a little bit more scrutiny put onto the activity funds, booster groups that are under our purview. County's got a plan to make sure those get checked out and accounted for correctly going forward. And then the other announcement, the other pronouncement, future changes is leases, and that's in 2 years. Nothing you guys want to worry about. Early warning legislation, I don't fear we're in any danger at this district. And then continued funding, if we choose to fund that healthcare savings fund, and funding the capital projects fund to set some money aside for future needs as well. But that's a pretty quick overview.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments?
Very clear.
Please.
Well, I was just looking through my notes. It's not a foundation allowance anymore. Did they change the wording in the legislation? They're calling it something else now?
Still the foundation.
Okay, I thought I read
Tomato,
something.
tomato.
Yeah, it's still the same formula until proposal.
Oh, it was just a word change.
Yeah.
Dan?
I don't know, this is what, your 4th or 5th year presenting to us? I think it's
Yeah.
somewhere around there, so.
Yep.
Appreciate it, but it's frustrating because as well as we're doing, there's a level of control we just don't have, and that's the state. And, you know, we can come up with all the great programs in the world, but if the state doesn't pass a budget, what do we do?
You know,
what do we do if there is no budget and you know, they're still wrangling back and forth and they're doing their game over there in Lansing? Do we go into our $10 million and start?
You guys are very fortunate. This district is very fortunate, and here's why, is because you've got, one of these slides has it, and I know it does, right there. You got about 20%, right? Mm-hmm. So if you do the math on 20%, you get about, what, 60 days or so? So you got 60 days before you need to borrow cash. Take a district that's 5%. How are they going to make it to October 20th? How are they going to make it to November 20th if they don't get any money in October? So that's the real scare. That right now there's two sides to the story, and I'm not saying which side I'm for or against, but
right. No, I get it.
All I'm for is the students. Give the students money. Again, if you're in a district, you're getting the full $240, right? $240 per student increase. Public school academies were taken out of that. So PSA's got no increase this year. So you go to a PSA that has 400 students, 500 students, you're talking about a $120,000 hit to something they had planned. On a $5 million budget.
And I guess that's my overall point, is we can be as judicial as we want with our funds. Unfortunately, we're in a good position, but there are things out there that are beyond our control that we just could get blindsided.
The flip side of that is worst case scenario. I'll show you. I'll go back and point out one more thing on this here. Back in 2012, our allowance got cut $500. 85% of your expenses go out to staff. You're not going to save that money by cutting the other 15%, which is really closer to something like 8% of your expenses on paper and textbooks, on computers, and things like that. That's the real scare, is if you were to be cut like that again, right, and the state went downhill again, and schools got cut, that had to come out of teachers, which is a direct impact on performance of students, in my opinion. So how do you do that? Is you weather the storm. You come up with a contingency plan. I know we were just talking about this not too long ago. You think about a contingency plan. What if? What do we do? Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Sam, Connie, thank you very much. I appreciate all your hard work.
Great job.
Thank you. Jacob, I also want to thank you and your team.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
And publicly as well, Connie, I would like to thank you for your hard work and dedication to the district, because you are the main reason why this district, from an accounting standpoint, is where it is. And so thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. We're at 8B, ratification of resolutions. We have two motions before us. Would someone like to read the first one? Please, Heather.
Move to approve the resolution ratifying the 2019 funding bonds as presented.
And is there support? Mary, support? Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. How about that second one? Would you like to do that one too?
Sure.
Thank you.
Move to approve the resolution ratifying the 2019 school building and site bond series 2 as presented.
Thank you. Support. Dan, support. Discussion. Yes, sir.
Sam, and I was going to bring it up in the last motion, but I figured I'd wait. Refunding these bonds, if you could just kind of give us a quick overview of how much it saves the district in interest.
Oh, absolutely. So we are saving from the refunding of the school bond loan revolving fund, just shy of $5 million for our taxpayers by doing the refunding that we just sold the bonds last Monday. Yes.
Nice job.
And that's not cash that we get.
No.
That's just saving money and interest.
That's correct. That is saving our district's taxpayers that interest on that school bond loan fund that we would have been paying.
So if we're to kind of go back to last meeting when we talked about keeping our mills at a certain number, this is one of the mechanisms that allows us to do so.
It definitely helps because you're paying off the debt quicker, you're paying less interest. So our residents are paying less interest on that debt. Correct.
Thank you. Great question. Anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Safety update.
Thank you again. So in your board packet, I have the safety update. I just wanted to briefly mention number one, the 3M safety film as part of the 2019 safety grant. We are now at the elementary schools. The virtual academy, as a reminder, went first. And Oxford Elementary was the most recent recipient of the window film. And so I'm not sure, I have to check with Tony what elementary is going next, but I just wanted to give you an update of where we're at. In terms of the middle school and the high school, specifically the high school, we have yet to meet with Mr. Wolf and decide, really what we're going to do in that game plan for the front offices, the front of the building, so I just wanted you to be aware of that. The second item on the list was building safety assessments across the district. So the state of Michigan put out assessments, best practices for all districts in the state to review with each of their building principals as well as their department directors, and it was quite an exhaustive list of items within these assessments. And I want to thank Jill Amon for taking the initiative and meeting with all of our building principals and completing these assessments that really, not only are they a requirement from the state, but they're really what we should be doing from an operational standpoint as a public school district anyway. And I say public school district anyway, it's any entity, frankly, should be doing these. These are fantastic assessments. They cover a variety of safety-related issues that anyone who owns a physical building really needs to look at with people in it. So again, I wanted to bring that up. In addition to that, Jill did some AED walkthroughs at all of the buildings and developed a list of some needs from an AED standpoint. And so there's a few defibrillators that we need to purchase, some new batteries, and some new operational protocol that we're going to be following going forward to ensure that everything is better than it was. Let's just put it that way. In addition to that, implementation of the Pre-Plan Live emergency management software. We have a meeting this Thursday with the Pre-Plan Live representatives, and we're going to be doing some additional walkthroughs of the buildings before the installation of the software, or I should say the hardware, starts to occur at all of the buildings. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up with that. And then finally, I wanted to just remind everyone that we have our district safety meeting, which will be held at the PAC lobby on October 17th from 9 to 11. And so I invite all of the board members to attend, but only up to 3 members, please, if you're able to attend. So I do invite you, please, if you can attend, I strongly encourage you to do so. Please talk amongst yourselves and determine possibly up to 3 individuals who would like to be there. So thank you.
What's that date again?
It is October the 17th. It's a Thursday, and it's from 9 to 11 a.m. in the PAC lobby.
Do you have an agenda yet?
Haven't developed the agenda yet. I will have that by the end. Thank you. Any questions?
You have a D?
I do. So construction projects.
Oh, sorry, we're gonna go back to
I have a
safety.
question on safety updates. With the pre-plan live, I told them last week, that's a tongue twister, it's really tough to say. When we start talking about installing those systems, just checking to see how that's gonna impact classrooms when they can do the work. I don't know if they have to go through walls to put wires in, what they're gonna be doing specifically, so.
We're going to have that discussion on Thursday, and
Okay.
we're going to really create a more finite plan with them as to what they're specifically going to be doing, you know, within the ceilings, if you will, but also the timing of those and when they can occur. That was something that we originally talked about with them, that they're going to be doing this in the evenings and or on the weekends to minimize the impact, obviously, to the school day
Right,
at all
yeah.
buildings.
So I'm jumping the gun, but thank you.
No, you're not jumping the gun. That's a great question.
Yeah.
Thank you. We are definitely thinking of that.
Anything else on safety? All right, construction update?
Yes, so I just wanted to mention to you briefly, we had a project at Lakeville Elementary that was back during the summer before school started. It was in August, where there was some change orders that needed to occur specifically to some rooftop units above the gym at Lakeville Elementary. So Jade, as our Clark construction manager, our project manager, was working with Conti, which was our mechanical contractor at the time, to ensure that the change order that they were requesting in order for the work to be completed was taken care of as quickly as possible before the state came in with the inspections before school could begin, pardon me. And so I wanted to bring this up because we have a board policy to where we would bring up anything that was $25,000 or over for board approval. Unfortunately, due to the timing that I just mentioned to you, as well as the fact that Jade was really under the impression that the work that was being done by Conti was less than $25,000. He had to progress because of the timeline. We found out that it was actually in excess of $25,000, and it was more to the tune of $37,000 for this additional HVAC work by Conti Corporation at Lakeville specifically. And so I wanted to bring that to your attention. It was something that unfortunately, due to the timing that I mentioned earlier, it had to happen. But I wanted everyone, just because I want that transparency to be out there and let you all know why it occurred and what it was for. And so Jade, I don't know if you wanted to add anything. Did I explain that?
That's pretty spot on. It's just, our etiquette was always to give Sam and Tim estimates for anything that was additional scope. So our intentions were to do that process, but with the timing in that last month, there wasn't a time to sit there and do 2 weeks to get it in front of you, get it approved. So we had to make an executive decision between Tim and Sam to make sure that we get school working in time.
Sam, so my question would be this: if we knew in June, July,
August, actually.
August.
Yes.
Okay. Was it a situation where they did the work, they gave you an estimate, they started the work, they got into the work, and now in October, we're a couple months away, now that we're getting the invoice now and we're realizing it's 37, or we realized it was 37 back then, I guess,
No.
why the big gap between the time we knew we needed to do the work till now?
So from my understanding, the majority of the month of September was going back and forth between Clark and Conti trying to bring down the dollar amount. I believe that the original estimate was indeed below $25,000 in obviously Clark's mind. But I don't know if you want to add anything to that and where you were originally
I
at.
spent the month trying to get it under that threshold to try to mitigate coming to you guys, but with what they explained and what we tracked as real time for them to do the work, it was realized costs. So I apologize that it didn't get in time, but at the same time, we're here to try to explain the situation too.
Well, I guess it's really important for us to understand how that time frame works. And I understand how things happen, where you get to the point where it has to be a quick decision that needs to be made. I just want to make sure that that process is explained. And I guess I understand that there is some wrangling going back and forth with Conti and trying to get that cost down. So that, would you say, is that the reason for the time lapse, just trying to get that number down?
I believe that this would have been realized regardless if it was in August or earlier. It just happened to be later in the project. So it was something that had to get done regardless. Where the units sat at Lakeville didn't meet clearances that were required for those units to operate. So we had to ship one back, and it caused a lot of extra ductwork and insulation. So those quantities are what is the bulk of that cost and the time to do that.
Please.
It fits within our contingency?
It is.
Okay, so
That's correct.
We're not elevating that to the danger zone then?
No, this is all covered within our contingency as part of the construction, the bond work. But regardless of that, it's still obviously public funds, and we want to be very above board. We want to be very extremely transparent. And so, again, at all times we try to the best of our ability, follow our procedures. And so that's why we're bringing this forward, and I wanted you to all be aware of that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Student Services.
Good evening. In your package, you have the Schools of Choice memo for Schools of Choice for second semester. So there's a motion for approval.
Dan?
Move to approve the school of choice enrollment for the 2019-2020 second semester. Kindergarten through 9th grade unlimited, 6th through 11th grade unlimited, Oxford Virtual Academy for full-time students.
Is there support? Chad, support. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Heather, would you like to make the motion on the policy?
Sure. Move to approve the first reading of policy number 2410, prohibition of referral or assistance.
Support. Mary, support. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Unscheduled audience participation?
Nothing.
You have 12 scheduled activities. Any clarification, sir?
I don't think so.
All right. Anyone wishing to make a final board comment?
It's a new day.
It's a new day, and it's a great day to be a Wildcat. Meeting adjourned? Whoop. Oh, wait a minute. We have another. I forgot. We have another.
Just real quick. So last time we met, Mary and I were selected to represent the board as delegates at the MASB conference next month, right? So we've got the list of resolution revisions and deletions. So instead of, we're looking at about 45, 50 pages. So instead of going through that right now, Mary and I are going to go through individually. We're taking a look to see what really needs to be called out, and we'll be communicating that with you so that everybody's aware of what's going to be discussed and voted on.
And to add to that, when you do get an email from them with their kind of highlights of things they're going to be facing, respond just to them, not to all. So we stay within the open meetings rules, okay? So respond just to the sender. All right, thank you very much for representing us.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. So with you guys.
Now it's a great day to be a Wildcat.
Yes, but just thank you again, Mr. Bigelow, for hosting us.
Thank you.
Thanks for the chairs.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's a chair. We all enjoy the chairs.
Meeting adjourned.